A little background on this evening's topic. Over the Thanksgiving holiday, this coming year, Thanksgiving holiday, I plan to conduct a seminar on this topic. It runs something like 10 different sessions. It's very substantial. And the the foundation of the topic is Canto 3, Chapter 29, Kapila Dev speaking to his mother, Devahuti. The topic is, the title of the chapter is Pure Devotional Service. So it's, and what are some of the obstacles of achieving pure devotional service? The obstacles of bhakti. And the absence of respect is a formidable one. And that's the topic that is being discussed. In the structure of that chapter, Kapila Dev gives to his mother, we'll back up. Before he gets to pure devotional service, he speaks at length what he's most known for, that is Sankhya philosophy or Sankhya yoga. And Sankhya yoga is found in Bhagavad Gita also, 3 places primarily. In chapter 2, in chapter 7, in chapter 13. Chapter 2 is what everybody knows. You're not the body. So categories of matter, categories of spirit. We belong to the category of spirit, not to the category of matter. And then midway through chapter 2, Krishna announces, now I've discussed Sankhya, next I'll discuss Buddhi Yoga. That Buddhi means intelligence. How to live your life with the understanding that you're not the body. We're in the material world. Bodies are material. How do you navigate being in the material world with material body and your spirit soul? How do you do that? Rather than giving the too much of the background, again in chapter 7, the 8 principal material and elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, make up the gross and subtle body. And then we're in the category of spirit. So aside from that, there's spirit soul, animates the body. Then again in chapter 13, notice the division. The very in the 3 sections of Bhagavad Gita, because there's 18 chapters, so 6, 6, and 6 makes 18. So at the beginning of when Krishna gives his instructions in the first set, Krishna gives his instructions in the second set, and Krishna gives his instructions in the third. Sankhya takes a very prominent role. What's the purpose of the prominent role of Sankhya? Because particularly in bhakti, because impersonalists, scholars and impersonalists really like Sankhya. They really like Sankhya. And then it stops there. Categories of matter, categories of spirit. And then since there's only one, the spirit, so I am Brahman. Anyway, but it's the foundation for bhakti also. And that's how the structure of Canto 3 works. When Kapila begins instructing Devahuti. He's preparing her, or she wants to be prepared for that time when her son is no longer going to be around, because she knows, and he knows that she knows, and she knows that he knows that she knows he's the personality of Godhead. How'd you like to have the personality of Godhead as your son and know it? So how qualified is Devahuti? And how qualified is the husband of Devahuti? Karnamuni. And this discussion is the very early stages of the cycle of the four yugas. Anyway, Swayambhuva Manu's daughter has 3 daughters, and Devahuti is one of them. And her son is a personality of Godhead. Like, wow. To picture the setting, and then here they are. She knows my husband. Before she was married, she expressed to her father, Swayambhuva Manu, who she'd like to marry. Because princesses have some privileges. Wasn't a Swayambar, but she said, Daddy, that's who I want to marry. And it was known that he lived in the forest, he lived deep in, and he didn't live in a palace. He wasn't a princess or king. It was a brahmana, a renunciate brahmana. So when the marriage proposal went to Karnamuni, he said, yes, I'll marry your daughter on one condition. That when there's a son of age to look after your daughter, I'm going back to the forest. And that's what happened. He went back to the forest. So there she is with her son, and she knows he's not going to stick around. So while he's around, I better receive from him that which is going to sustain my well-being in his physical absence. And so she asked questions, and he gives answers, and now we're all the way up to chapter 29, pure devotional service. And one of the verses in chapter 29 is, he gives a very concise statement of what pure devotional service is. And it resembles very much the definition that Rupa Goswami gives of devotional service. What is not and what it is. Definition. So that's the target. That's where the purpose of all the Sankhya is, to help his mother or anyone who's hearing his teaching achieve pure devotional service, the purpose of life, the place where there's complete shelter. In her case, when she's in one sense an unprotected woman, in another sense a fully protected woman, because she has shelter of the personality of Godhead in pure devotional service, or anyone else, any yuga or any gender or anything. So it's appropriate for us. That's the target, pure devotional service. Then Kapila Dev discusses. I'm going to touch on a little bit the topics of the presentation, but just for summary purpose. He speaks about devotional service where persons worship my deity form. So, he's the personality of Godhead speaking to his mother, about those who worship him in his deity form, but don't respect the presence of that Supreme Lord who they're worshiping the deity form of in the hearts of others. The absence of respect is disrespect. And that disrespect blocks bhakti. That's the context. And then comes an explanation, mainly through our acharyas, mainly through Jiva Goswami and Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, because both of those acharyas elaborately discuss this chapter, the verses of the chapter, the flow, the sequence of the chapter. There's stages of the absence of respect. And the list is 4, and then each one gets more severe, a little more severe, a little more severe. And the lighter of the 4 leads to the second one, leads to the third one, leads to the fourth one. You know, this more subtle leads to the more gross, or it's the foundation of the next one, next one, next one. So it's important to understand, for us, it's important to understand one of those things that blocks bhakti is, there's 6 enemies: Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. And that Matsarya is deeply analyzed in the course of the flow of the chapter, not only by those 2 acharyas, but other acharyas, particularly Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The enemies of the conditioned soul, and that the enemy is the enemy within. Very formidable enemy. So that's the context. And then, the practical application for ISKCON devotees today around the world is how to overcome, how to counteract, how to behave in such a way that spiritual respect becomes more and more part of our life. We'll go the other direction. We're in conditioned life. We're spirit souls in a physical body, and we're very much conditioned by the covering, identifying with the covering and the doshas, the faults, the characteristic of one who isn't situated in pure bhakti. Because those that are situated in pure bhakti, they don't take birth in the material world. Those that are not situated in pure bhakti, they take birth in the material world. So here we are. The body is like a flag, indicating I have a disease called material consciousness. And so we start, those of us that at some point in time we begin bhakti, at whatever age or whatever circumstances we begin bhakti, there's contaminations as part of the package. And we're instructed by Kapila Dev and Rupa Goswami and pure devotee acharyas to cultivate Shuddha Bhakti. And we're not there yet. So what are some of the things standing in the way of Shuddha Bhakti? And this topic, this chapter 29, is one of them. It's the disrespect or the failure to respect. And they, our acharyas particularly, analyze it arises from envy. And the envy ultimately goes to the Supreme. We take birth because there's an attitude towards the Supreme that says, I want to enjoy independently. Mixed bhakti is, you can enjoy, but I should also enjoy. Or primarily, I should also enjoy. And that is, I'm at the center. The false ego places, by misconception, it places oneself at the center. And Krishna can be in the picture more or less. Sometimes more, and often less. And how to make the center Krishna. And I'm there as a servant of the one who's at the center. But if he's not at the center, then envy is there. One of those 6 enemies, Matsarya. And it's poison. And so this failure to respect has a philosophical foundation, a practical foundation as well, and how to navigate through that circumstance. That's the chapter. There's the scene. It's a very nice painting because Devahuti's husband, Kardama Muni, was so qualified. He knew he was very happy being in the forest, but his new wife, she was accustomed to royal lifestyle. So by his mystic power, he manifested a palace. Poof. And then after their son was of age, he disappeared. It doesn't give a description of, Haribol, see you later kind of conversation. It just, she had made a commitment to his condition, and he went. So there she is in her palace with her son, and she wants to prepare herself for that time when he's not going to be around either. And that's the context. Then comes like 6, 7, 8 chapters of Kapila's teachings to Devahuti. Everything about how to achieve complete success in the process of devotional service is explained in this chapter. Explanation of devotional service. That's the title, Prabhupada's title. Explanation of devotional service. Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur is one of the 2 principal commentators, and he doesn't just speak on content. He speaks an affective aspect. Often, he's a Rasika Bhakta, and he often speaks about the feelings, the emotions, the transcendentalness of the personalities that are the verses about. So he's commenting in his commentary that Kapila Dev is angry, deliberately exaggerated anger to express a certain point. He says, this is Vishwanath expressing, people superficially say, yes, I follow bhakti, but in reality, they violate fundamental principle of bhakti, respect. This violation makes people angry. Now, this is his commentary. There's no clarity in the language of the early verses that he's angry. But, Vishwanath reads beyond the word. And Here's the vidambanam. Vidambanam means imitation. This is in the later verse of this chapter. I am present in every living entity as the supersoul. If someone neglects or disregards that supersoul everywhere and engages himself in the worship of the deity in the temple, that is simply imitation. So they avagya, they ignore me. In my presence as Paramatma within the heart of every living entity, while they're worshiping me in my deity form. And that kind of worship of me in my deity form while neglecting me as the supersoul, this is imitation. Imitation is pretty strong. D means particularly. Dambanam. Even sounds like bad. Dambanam. Envy. Dambam. Envy. Vidambam. Vidambanam. So Prabhupada has chosen to translate it as imitation. Like, a child may imitate their parent. That's often how worship of a deity or something is learned. They see the parent do something, and so they do that. They want to do that something. There's no harm at all. But the strong is, it's not the real thing. It's the imitation thing. And so Kapila Dev is saying many people, they're on the platform of imitation bhakti. A nicer way of saying it, it's sadhana bhakti. They're practicing. Here's the purport for that verse. In purified consciousness or Krishna consciousness, this is Prabhupada, one sees the presence of Krishna everywhere. If, therefore, one only engages in the deity worship in the temple and does not consider other living entities, then he is in the lowest stage of devotional service. One who worships the deity in the temple and does not show respect to others. So there's others means living entities, not just other Vaishnavas, or even others in the human form, but others. Then he is in the lowest stage of is a devotee on the material platform, or the lowest stage of devotional service. The devotee should try to understand everything in relationship with Krishna and try to serve everything in that spirit. To serve everything means to engage everything in the service of Krishna. If a person is innocent and does not know his relationship with Krishna, an advanced devotee should try to engage him in the service of Krishna. One who is advanced in Krishna consciousness can engage not only the living beings, but everything in the service of Krishna. So the painting is showing Supersoul everywhere, because Supersoul is everywhere. Or say it negatively, there's not a place where Supersoul doesn't exist. Sarvagata, everywhere. Within every atom, in lots of atoms. Within every living entity, the heart of the and He's everywhere. He's all pervasive. The structure of this presentation is, as you can see, it's not exactly chronological, and that's okay. But it's meant to be logical. This is a verse from Canto 1, Chapter 2, where the success of devotional service is the Atma, Yayatma Suprasidati, one's fully satisfied in the heart. The supreme occupation, or dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted, completely satisfied of self. Or a non-Bhagavatam references over here. Why look any further if you've discovered complete satisfaction? And it's a spiritual principle. It's a Bhagavad Gita principle to give up a lesser taste by experiencing a higher taste. From Vishnana Vartate. And if you do have the higher taste, lesser taste, it's not so difficult to give it up. And conversely, if you don't have the higher taste, giving up the lesser taste is difficult. Because, living entities want to enjoy without exception. Living entities want happiness. And if you got a lesser happiness, you may be satisfied with a lesser happiness. And that's it. And that's your life, is a lesser happiness life. The end of the universe. Here's a reference from Priti Sandarbha. Some of you may be like me. Yeah, I'm a deep admirer of Jiva Goswami. There's somebody that another American devotee that often somewhere, and assiduously they are reading the Sandarbhas of Jiva Goswami. They, reading Srimad Bhagavatam as well, but they really like Jiva Goswami, and there's a reason. So he really likes Srimad Bhagavatam. He has written 4 commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam, and they're all very deep and profound. One of those commentaries is, as Prabhupada did, verse by verse, called Krama Sandarbha. Then there's another one that's topic by topic. And there's the 6 Sandarbhas, or Shat Sandarbhas. And of the 6, number 6 is Priti Sandarbha. The very first verse of Priti Sandarbha reads, the goal of the human being is attaining happiness and destroying suffering. No disagreement. Complete happiness and destruction of suffering is attained only by priti, for the Lord. That's his opening statement. The rest of the Sandarbhas, that particular Sandarbha, is explaining it or giving scripture references and developing and developing and developing. But it's a foundational statement. That's true. Attain happiness, destroy suffering. But somehow or other it seems like devotional service may not be working for us. Because devotional service is meant to achieve those 2 things. Priti, or affection, love and service with affection for Bhagavan. And Bhagavat Bhakti is meant to achieve that. It somehow may not be working. Why? And in this chapter, he describes, Kapila Dev describes, the three modes of nature are operating. And not just operating, but it's ruling. Because we're spirit soul within Prakriti. And Prakriti has these three modes. So the spirit soul is being strongly influenced by these three modes. When we start our devotional service, inevitably we start in the modes of nature. We cannot suddenly jump to the transcendental level. So our devotional service is faulty due to its being performed with ulterior motivations. The happiness is within these three modes, or mixed in some way or another. Here's a little chart that says the same thing. It's breaking down, the motivation for the person in each of these three modes, and their bina drik. This phrase becomes important as the chapter it develops. Bina means separate, like bina prakriti ashtada, the separate material energies. You know the verse. Bhumi, the earth, water, fire, air, ether, they're his separated energies. Bina prakriti. So here's bina drik, is the separatist. And the separatist is minus compassion. That is, it's all about me and my happiness. And if someone else is not experiencing happiness, it doesn't bother me because it's all about my happiness. So compassion shrinks. That's one of the symptoms of the age of Kali. No, when this is being spoken, it's not the age of Kali. It's Satya Yuga. But even in Satya Yuga, what to speak of where it's very prevalent and prominent in Kali Yuga, the compassion for the suffering. Let's take the example of our founder Acharya. He wasn't in the modes of nature. He was one of the rocket fuels that propelled him was he saw people were unnecessarily not happy, and he wanted people to be happy. Sarve sukhi no bhavantu is a phrase that he used hundreds of times. He wanted people to be, everyone should be happy. And people aren't happy. Because the covering. The soul is happy, but the coverings make it not experience that happiness. So experience something other than happiness. The way that Prabhupada has translated this, the separatist mentality, Binadrik. And then in Rajas, the fundamental underlying everything is this separatist without compassion. Pratak bhava, desire for objects other than the Lord. Pratak bhava, desire for liberation. More subtle in the sattva guna. So the desire for objects, that's passion. And supposing one is a little bit above that particular passion, the desire for object, the object then becomes liberation. I want out of this place. It's crazy. I want a life that's free from passionate ignorance, please. And, by default, not having proper spiritual understanding of the spiritual realm and or the position of bhakti, that taking one to Krishna's at the center. I want liberation. I want freedom from bondage. of material existence. Definition by negation. Those are the three modes. And mixture of the three modes. Pure devotional service, here's the definition given in Canto 3, Chapter 29. It's a very nice definition. The manifestation of unadulterated devotional service is exhibited when one's mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everyone's heart. Just as the water of the Ganges flows naturally down towards the ocean. Notice this metaphor is in Kunti's prayers. Now we recognize she prays in the same way, Canto 1, Chapter 8. Let my mind be like the Ganges flowing inexorably towards the sea. The Ganges flows towards the sea. Let my mind flow towards such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material condition, flows towards the Supreme Lord. So it's a spontaneous, one can say just like gravity, water flows down because of the law of gravity. Water doesn't flow up. Water flows down by the law of gravity. So it is the natural law, and there's a spiritual natural law. The mind is attracted to the topics of the personality of Godhead spontaneously. In any circumstance, when water is flowing down, if there's an obstacle in the way, it wears away the obstacle over in time. Stones or something, debris, it gets carried by the river. It can't stop it. So devotional service is spontaneous in that same way. There's nothing that can start it, nothing that can stop it. It's just, there's iron magnets, iron filings are attracted to a magnet. The mind is attracted to the topics of the personality of God spontaneously. I'm pausing because I'm thinking about Pundarik Vijayanidhi. In the pastimes of Nimai Pandit, when Lord Chaitanya was young, he had a friend. He had a number of friends. One of his friends was Gadadhar, as in the Panchatattva. So Gadadhar, from his childhood, he exhibited a dislike. Not only he didn't like the objects and the playfulness of children. He didn't like. He had a natural aversion. He was very renounced, and he was attached to Krishna. So one of Gadadhar's friends was Mukunda. Mukunda is the one who we sing about in Gora Arti. He's the one that sang Gora Arti. He had a great voice. Viva Jayo, Jaya Gora Chandra. So Mukunda is the one that sang. So Mukunda knew the mindset of Gadadhar, that he's detached. At the same time, he wanted his Gadadhar to learn an important lesson. You can't judge a person's detachment like yours from the outside. So he, Mukunda, invited Gadadhar, I'd like you to meet a person from the village, from the same village that I came from, because now they're living in Navadvip, the seat of high learning. And his name was Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So, because they're friends, Mukunda convinced his friend Gadadhar to come. Gadadhar was reluctant, but he went because Mukunda was encouraging. And when he came before Pundarik Vidyanidhi to meet him, he was shocked. The man was externally appeared to be a sense gratifier, like to the max, like, opulent clothing and perfumes and a big cushy place to sit on and hookah pipes and, beverage vessels and, like, look like, why did Mukunda bring me to meet this person? He didn't say anything, but his mind was saying. And Mukunda knew, because even before they got there, that he's going to respond this way. So what did Mukunda do? He sang. And he sang a verse from the Bhagavatam, appreciating the affinity that the gopis had for Krishna and hearing the sound of Krishna's flute. He just sang the verse. Because Sanskrit is in meter that it's meant to be sung. So he sang the verse. And Pundarik Vidyanidhi, just by hearing, his mind was so much attracted to that wonderful sound vibration, he fell out of his seat onto the floor, started rolling around on the floor in a fit of ecstasy, and became unconscious. Just hearing that sound vibration. And so, guess how Gadadhar felt? Wow. You can't judge a book by its cover. When Pundarik Vidyanidhi came to external consciousness, Gadadhar very honestly, because he's a Brahmin boy, he very honestly said, these were my thoughts about you, and they're offensive thoughts. I had no idea who you really were. Please pardon me. And Pundarik was not, there's nothing to pardon as far as he was concerned. Because Pundarik had a purpose in appearing to be materialist. He wanted to conceal his spiritual identity. Purposely, he covered himself in this way. So in one sense, mission accomplished. You thought I was a materialist. And in course of time, the relationship between Gadadhar and Pundarik Vidyanidhi became such that Gadadhar accepted Diksha from him because he's such an elevated personality, a very suited person to receive Diksha from. So this is the definition in Canto 3, Chapter 29 of what pure devotional service is. One whose mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who resides in everyone's heart. So, being attracted to the form of the Lord without being attracted to the Lord who's within everyone's heart, it's not consistent. To prove that this is the highest state of consciousness, Kapila gives an example. A pure devotee does not accept any kind of liberation, salokya, sharsti, samipya, sarupya, or ekatva, even though they are offered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as happened with Dhruva. Dhruva wanted a kingdom. He wanted a super kingdom, better than his father, and better his father's father, and better his father's father. And it was, a little boy thinking like this. So when Vishnu appeared and was ready to give him his kingdom, he didn't want. You want liberation? No. I want association of your devotee, Narada. What is one supposed to do to achieve this state? So, in this chapter 29, he gives a sadhana to achieve this state of consciousness. So it's a nice chapter, important chapter. And it includes giving up these shortcomings or obstacles or defect of disrespect. And after giving those examples, well, we're going to circle back around to give out those 4 examples. As a chariot of air carries an aroma from its source and immediately catches the sense of smell, similarly, one who constantly engages in devotional service in Krishna consciousness can catch the Supreme Soul, who is equally present everywhere. So this is an elevated state beyond deity worship, or a more complete form of deity worship. Experiencing super soul everywhere, because he's literally everywhere. The characteristic of that consciousness, when our consciousness reaches a certain stage, Brahmabhuta, then the activities in devotional service obtain the power to bring the soul to the Lord. Not much endeavor is required to be near the Lord. One's subjective experience of devotional service becomes increasingly powerful. So we have our classic examples in the Bhagavatam. Prahlad is one, and he was so situated. And even when in the greatest of danger, he wasn't disturbed, because by his constant remembrance, he wasn't disturbed, even in the greatest of danger. Exactly as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So that state is meant for us to attain, not necessarily, get trampled by elephants and nothing happens. There's an example like this of a few generations after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Rasikananda, and there were persons who were envious, and they tried to kill him by having him trampled by elephants, and he remained undisturbed. Similar. And he reached up and grabbed the trunk of the elephant and pulled, and the elephant came crashing to the ground. It just was carrying on like as if nothing happened. Celebrated personality. Even in the greatest of calamities. Calamity comes in life. In our conditioned stage, it is almost impossible to remember the Lord. Right now, our devotional service does not have this power. That is, much of what the mind is engaged in is problem solving. And there's lots of problems. And so after immersion in, it's just distraction for pure sadhana or immersed sadhana. Because there's this problem, that problem, the other problem, the other problem. And then when that one's gone, there's 10 more. It's just, and then you die. It's over. and then you do it again. So to not go through that cycle, is there an option? There is an option. So the power of devotional service is blocked by these obstacles. I am present in every living entity as a super soul. If someone neglects or disregards that super soul everywhere and engages himself in the worship of the deity in the temple, that is simply imitation. This is Vidambanam verse. So there's a prior qualification. One isn't distracted, but when everyone's distracted. So how do you get there? You will never achieve anything in your devotional service, he says 4 times, unless you understand that the Lord is in every living entity and respects every living entity. Commentary, both he and Vishwanath and Jiva Goswami, in his Sandarbhas, Bhakti Sandarbha, explain that Kapila is describing 4 stages of envy in these 4 verses, along with its corresponding result. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on these 4 stages of envy, or hostility towards another. The one on the right is, more severe. The one on the far left is a kind of condescension. One may not say anything, but internally one thinks of oneself as a little better than somebody else. And for some reason or another reason. And looking down, that's this word avagya. Avagya. Ava means down. Gya means to know. Like avatar, one who descends from a higher position to a lower position. Avatar. Avagya is one who has a condescending attitude, a haughty attitude. I'm better than this person, that person, the other person. And without saying anything, but holding that regard. Now, who doesn't do that? But, the elevated souls don't do that. And there is, that's encouraged. That's the starting point of this envy that's on the far left. You'll see with these different terms. Avagya, arrogance or neglect of others. Upeksha, turning away. That's the second fellow. Dvesha, animosity, or literally hatred, dvesha. And ninda, sadhu ninda, or Vaishnava ninda, criticism. And this is, one of our 10 offenses against the holy name. Each stage grows more severe, both internally and externally. We'll take a look at these 4 verses because this is a foundational point. Here's 21, so 3, 29, 21. There's the word vidampanam again. I am present in every living entity as the super soul. If someone neglects or disregards that super soul everywhere and engages himself in the worship of the deity in the temple, that is simply imitation. So there's living entities meant to be illustrated. There's a fellow on the right, he's worshiping the deity, and he's ignoring or neglecting living entities. There's the cow, and there's a humble man, and there's a dog, and there's a mother and her child, etc., etc. Neglecting, or so the idea of the absence of respect is a type of disrespect. And if that it's literally disrespect or literally failure to honor or respect another, then there's a problem. It's an obstacle, avagya. Avagya is the subtle beginning of envy. Ava means down, like the word avatar. Gya means to know. Avagya means to look at someone or to know someone or to see someone from a little above. I'm better than they are. Looking down on others. And there's no verbal communication or no action, just a feeling of superiority. Appears as slight haughtiness or pride. Nothing is said or done, but inwardly one relegates others to a lower level. In the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, in his discussions with Uddhava, Krishna describes the stage of a Kanishta, Madhyama, and an Uttama Adhikari, or Vaishnava. And the mandate for the Madhyama, that's us. We're not completely neophyte. We're not Uttamas either. So Madhyamas in different stages or gradations. It's enjoined that there's discrimination. You discern there's the Supreme Lord, there's advanced devotees, and I look up to, that there's peers with whom I make friendship, and then there's the innocent, then there's the offensive. So these are stages that the Madhyama is requested or instructed to discern differences. So it seems like a contradiction. We're supposed to, we're enjoined to make distinctions. But if one is thinking inwardly, thinking that others are lower, it seems like a contradiction. You hear the contradiction? Did I do it again? Do it again. On the screen here it says, this avagya stage, text 21, is a kind of haughtiness. I'm looking down upon others. Outwardly, no speech or behavior. Inwardly, others are lower. That's this offensive envy. But yet, seemingly contradictory is the duty of a Madhyama Bhakta, that's us, to make distinctions. There's persons who are averse to the personality of Godhead, they're offenders to the personality of Godhead. We keep a safe distance from them. There are others that are innocent, and we show kindness to them, show mercy to them. Then those that are on a peer level, we make friendship with them. Those that are more advanced, this is not just, and these are devotees, we look up to some devotees. In categories, we make distinction. It's going to be addressed, but I just want to make it clear. So, vidambanam. in Raghunath Das Goswami's writings, Manashiksha, it's one of the mandates that he presents, the very fundamental mandate that he presents. If somebody, if you, the readers of this book, wish to achieve the stage of spontaneous devotional service or raga bhakti, its first starting point, give up vidambanam. Give up this pride. Krishna considers such worship to be imitation. So here's somebody, there's the deity on his left, and here he's respecting another Vaishnava. Devotional service becomes sankochita, or withdrawn or weakened, because of this offense. Neglecting, failure to respect, which is a kind of disrespect of the living entity. You know, when one of the advantages of being a speaker at a Sunday feast program is I'm looking out at the audience, and then let's say over here is the deity, and then there are people that come and go, and the people that come and go, the newer people, it's very common. The whole family comes in the temple room, and they're not paying attention at all to anybody else in the temple room. It's like them and the deity. They come before the deity. They are different depending upon their upbringing. They have different rituals. And they just do the rituals, and everybody else that's in the temple room is like not in the temple room. Sometimes they stand on one foot and turn around 3 times, and sometimes different things. The parents take their child and hold their hand out while they put Charnamrita. Everybody in the temple room just isn't in the temple room. It's just them and the deity, and they're paying the respect. It's nice, but it's at this avagya level. So here's a famous Braja story. Everybody likes stories. So this is Once Upon a Time, because good stories start with Once Upon a Time. Once upon a time, there was a young man who came to Vrindavan, and he found a sadhu in Vrindavan, and he became very attracted to the sadhu in Vrindavan. So he wanted the sadhu in Vrindavan to give him mantra diksha. So the sadhu was testing him, and the sadhu requested him to go find someone of a lower stature than himself. And the person went, and he couldn't find anyone that was of a lower stature than himself. The detail of the story is he thought maybe a street sweeper. So he went to there's a colony in Vrindavan, and he saw the bungis, and then he was thinking, no, they're with the dust of Vrindavan all day long. So they're not lower. They're very fortunate souls. And then each of the other personalities. There's a cow. There's a dog. There's a worm. And he reached the conclusion that these are all elevated persons. Well, there's details and details to the whole narration. But he came back to the guru and said, I couldn't find anybody of a lower nature. He said, very good. I'll give you diksha. because you're not thinking of yourself higher than anyone in Vrindavan. In a similar way, this is painting, this is like from a comic book, but this is Dronacharya teaching all the young boys military skill. So he wanted to examine them. So his examination was, Yudhisthira, see if you can find someone who is inferior to you somewhere in the kingdom and bring that person to see me. And Duryodhana was find someone who's superior. Duryodhana couldn't find anyone superior. And Yudhisthira couldn't find anyone inferior. Duryodhana, having a mindset focused on finding faults and obsessed with viewing his material superiority, as a young fellow, returned claiming he could not find a single superior person. Duryodhana reached the following conclusion. Yudhisthira was the personification of humility and was fit to rule the people, whereas Duryodhana was too proud to be a pious king and would ultimately ruin the Kuru dynasty. Similar. On the topic of avagya, of looking down upon others or thinking of oneself as superior. Real devotional service starts at Yudhisthira's stage of humility. Before this, our devotional service is vidambanam, or imitation, or pretense. Kapila wants to impress upon us the result of this innocent, apparently, haughtiness. The result of such attitude is that our pretense grows more and more. Bhakti becomes more obscured or more blocked. The obstacles of bhakti proliferate. This offense of slight envy deprives devotional service of its natural power. When we perform devotional service with such an attitude, very soon we will see the hypocrisy within us. When we don't feel satisfaction in devotional service, we try to get satisfaction by seeking appreciation from others. You may know some persons, you may even be one of those persons who feels this feeling. I'm underappreciated. Or when there is appreciation, now I feel good. And without the appreciation, I don't feel so good. So when that appreciation comes, or the lack of appreciation isn't being exhibited, what's it a sign of? No, offering respect and appreciation to another devotee, it's natural and it's becoming. However, if that becomes like the foundation or basis of someone's happiness or unhappiness when they don't get that appreciation, it's a sign of something. If there's even a slight difference between what we are doing when we are with others and when we're alone, this vidambana, it's hypocrisy. I behave one way in this circumstance. Just reading Shrutakirti's biography, and Prabhupada was in Vrindavan. He was a servant. Someone came to see him, and someone asked Prabhupada, should I close the door? And Prabhupada's reply was, you leave the door open, we have nothing to hide. No secret. No, that was how Prabhupada spoke to this particular person at a particular time and for a particular reason. But it indicates how Prabhupada lived his life, or a pure devotee lives their life. Now, confidentiality is something that's to be respected, and some things are confidential, and they're not to be maintained confidential. On the other hand, a disrespectful attitude is a problem. And when behaving one way publicly and behaving another way privately is not good. So this commentary is saying this is largely from Vishwanath and Jiva Goswami, but this avagya is the first step and leads to other steps. Prabhupada's remedy. When we feel that we are higher than someone, immediately we should catch ourselves and see their connection with Krishna. That's exactly this Vraja story, the connection with the cow. What a glorious life. All they do is serve others and bring nourishment, healthy nourishment to others. The worm in stool, he was thinking maybe. But, there they are, as the end product of Krishna Prasadam. And that's their home. So they're the elevated state. That's this particular narration, the sense of humility. But see another's connection with Krishna. If this other person, someone, is connected to Krishna, how is he lower than us? He's a part of God. When we regard material nature, knowing it's Krishna's, how can we exploit it? This attitude is something Kapila repeats many times. We have to see everything in connection with Krishna. Here's a little example again from this Shrutakirti's What is the Difficulty book. One of the places that Prabhupada liked was Los Angeles, and one of the things he liked in Los Angeles was his there's a garden. In the garden there's flowering trees. There's a certain kind of little white flower that's very fragrant, very tiny flower, and Prabhupada liked them. And he would sometimes, Shrutakirti would bring him a little palm full of those flowers. And Prabhupada would smell the flowers and say, this is Krishna. And he would place, at night, those flowers right by his pillow. And with his nose close to them so he could smell Krishna while he was sleeping. Shrutakirti writes that in the morning, that flowers were in the same place as when Prabhupada took rest. He was seeing or experiencing Krishna within the flower. This is Vrindavan. And in the presence of Krishna. There's many such examples in his writings. Little things. Close association gave Shrutakirti the opportunity to see how a pure devotee is and lives. And Prabhupada's example was he was always seeing Krishna. Here's another one. This is from another city, I think Los Angeles. No, it could be Dallas. Someone asked, is the reason why the sky is blue is because the Krishna is blue? And Prabhupada said yes. Then somebody in the room, another disciple, said, according to Krishna book, Krishna is dark like a monsoon cloud, not just blue. And Prabhupada corrected him, saying the light in the sky is bluish because of the effulgence from Krishna, whose form is blue, a dark blue. And then Prabhupada said, just by looking at the sky, who doesn't see the sky? One can think of Krishna. And, it wasn't notional. It wasn't, a little passage from Krishna book somewhere. But it's how he lived his life. He was always mindful of Krishna in different ways, even within scenes of nature. We should try to bring our conscious awareness that everything is connected to God or connected to Krishna. And that's in this, pure devotional stage, as that verse indicated. And then comes the next, upeksha. Now, because of time, I don't think I'm going to make it through all four, because it takes time to do all these. Upeksha is a more advanced stage than avagya. Avagya is neglect or failure to respect. Upeksha is not just failure to respect, but avoiding others. I'm pausing because before coming back to the USA, I was in China for 3 weeks. And there were two different situations in particular where devotees were in an uncomfortable position because they were avoiding other devotees. They were avoiding other devotees for different reasons, but they were avoiding other devotees. And their bhakti was compromised because of that. It's a block. It's an obstacle to pure devotional service. The power of bhakti is powerful, and the power of bhakti can be blocked, or one's experience, just like clouds in the sky. It was raining today, and it's going to be raining for the next few days. So the sun is in the sky as bright as when there's a clear sky as when there's a cloudy sky. But your experience of the sun in the sky is diminished by the thickness of the clouds in the sky. Similarly, bhakti is powerful. And the power of the powerful bhakti can be blocked by something else that also has the power to block the power of bhakti. So these are stages. They're matsarya, one of the obstacles that's within, is this attitude. Ultimately, it goes towards the Supreme, but intermediately, it's towards another or towards others. And the failure to offer respect is one. Now here's deliberately avoiding others. Here's the verse from the Bhagavatam. One who worships the deity of Godhead in the temples, but does not know that the Supreme Lord as Paramatma is situated in every living entity's heart, must be in ignorance, and is compared to one who offers oblations into ashes. So oblations is literally ghee offered to the tongue of Vishnu. And if the tongue of Vishnu is the fire itself, supposing the fire has gone out, and now all that's left is the ashes of fire that once was. So pouring ghee into the ashes is like one who worships the deity but disrespect, ignores, stays away from others. Hitba or upeksha means due to stronger envy, one wants to avoid the person one is envious of. When there's a little haughtiness, one doesn't mind associating despite harboring envy, but now just by seeing the other person, one feels some unpleasant feelings. One consciously justifies that the other is bad. This is advanced disease. So it is not to say the person who there is that feeling towards and the avoidance of, that they have not done something wrong or spoken something wrong. It's not to justify the wrong, but to hold an attitude because of that. It's to the degree that the form of the Lord within the heart is neglected. That's a problem, a bhakti problem. Even if there is one person towards whom we harbor an attitude, the result is like offering ghee into ashes, no result. Sometimes we feel like this. We chant and chant and chant, but there's no result. One feels like they're running and running, but still in the same place. We may keep a distance from a tiger. We don't have to embrace it, but what is wrong is the attitude of hatred. So keeping a safe distance from hurtful people, that's fine. But having an attitude towards such a person, that's something else. So there we go. Pouring ghee onto ashes. And up on top there's a heart with some lightning and thunder and dark clouds, animosity and resentment. It happens. Sometimes somebody says something or does something that's hurtful. One feels hurt because it's hurtful. It's not to say that thing that was said or done is okay if it's intent with the intent of harming another. Just today, I had a discussion with somebody who some event happened nearly a month ago, and it's still lingering in their mind over that something. There's something that was said or done, and it's still lingering. The two individuals met. The person that said something apologized for something that they said, and but it's lingering. That hurt is still. That's a sign. So one can. You don't need somebody to tap you on the shoulder and say, my dear friend or Prabhu. It seems that you're holding on to something. That can happen if you have a friend that understands you and understands your thoughts and feelings, and they can remind you. It's good to have friends, and you hold yourself in such a way with your friends when you're transparent. They know what's going on, so they can tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, what's going on?" But we can also monitor ourselves. That is, if we're holding on to something that was said or done, and we're holding on to an attitude, a negative attitude towards that person, and when we see that person, we feel repulsed. Not good. If we can monitor ourselves. Now, at the end of all of this, because it escalates to more, I'm not going to go there because of time. He provides good news. He provides a remedy. When you detect that in yourself or in others that are dear to you, what to do? Is there an antidote? The answer is yes. A bhakti antidote. Aside from chanting more rounds or better rounds or something. There's additional behaviors and orientations of the mind towards the deity and towards other living entities. So there's remedy. But I'm going to save that for another time because of the hour. This is an extended seminar with many parts to it, and I thought this evening I'll just make a little part one presentation and see where it goes, and invite you, if come visit us in Houston or hear the recorded classes or we live broadcast. If you want, you can attend that way or some part of it. But it's our summary, our purpose in Krishna consciousness is to revive our dormant Krishna consciousness, to restore the stage of loving affection towards the personality of Godhead. He is the master and I'm the servant. I'd like nothing as an obstacle in the way of that loving service to the personality of Godhead. And there's other living entities and events that happen because we're in the material world and the woes of nature are operating, that I may not experience the fullness of the power of bhakti, which I'd like to experience uninterruptedly. That becomes possible when the heart is pure. And to get from where we are to a heart that's pure, then there's procedure. And that's what this seminar is. A major obstacle that's impeding our progress to purity. Let's see if there's some discussion.
I was wondering about the contradiction between not distinguishing or not looking down on people, but at the same time distinguishing between their levels. If you could speak more about that.
Okay. The main distinction between the two is one is in the mood of service, or one is instructed to, and the other is not with that impetus or force behind it. Just without the instruction of the personality of Godhead, as Krishna gives to Uddhava, to you and I, we're in this Madhyama position. This is something that we're enjoined to do, and we do because we're enjoined to do. It's a service. So the practical application is to be merciful to those who are innocent, and to make a distinction for those who are inimical. We may explain to let's say a new person. We may explain something that's simple, but because they're new, we keep it simple. And we're invested with the mandate to share with others what we've received in bhakti. So you give that to them for that reason. Then, so the other position is, I'm just looking down upon others because, whatever the XYZ reasons are, that I'm thinking of myself as special, and others are less than special. So it's not in service to Guru and Gauranga, but it's a disrespect, a haughtiness, just because I think I'm better, whatever that better condition is. I'm educated, or I'm wealthy, or I'm beautiful, or I'm qualified, and they're not qualified. A classic example is what Prabhupada did. A Brahmana, by training and by quality, and to speak of by birth, and the standards of Krishna bhakti were superlative, and yet he sat amongst people who were just the opposite, and gave his mercy to anybody, anywhere, without discrimination. He could see what's what and who's who, but he was merciful to everybody. Good question. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Brahman. Hare Krishna. My question is, the first stage that is blocking bhakti. So what I understand is, it's not the external thing that what you're holding on to inside, internally, that is a problem, attitude. So for both of the things to align, there may be some time. So when we are trying externally, it might look externally, but internal, it might not have been aligned yet. So it might look like a duplicitous behavior outward, but you're trying it sincerely, externally also, because that's where we know that it starts there. So is there duplicitous behavior, or so where is that thing comes?
I'm going to need your help. Could you repeat? I got like 70% or 60%. What was she asking?
what I understood, Maharaj, he is trying to understand the difference between duplicity, which is in the heart. So that is what her question is related to. How do I understand?
That's what you're asking. No.
I think what she's asking is the first stage of envy, avajna.
Yeah.
It is something to do with something I'm holding inside, but externally I may behave
Norm.
normally, and sincerely I'm trying to overcome that, but internally I'm still having that envy, but externally I'm still trying to be nice. Is that duplicitous behavior? How?
I can hear you better without the microphone. Yeah. Yeah. I think you've answered your question within the question. You know, the intention behind is where you can say duplicitous or not. Like take this example of bowing down. Is it duplicitous? And I don't feel like it, and I've let Prabhupada know that I don't feel like it. And Prabhupada is saying, bow down anyways. Because by bowing down, then you'll understand why it's important to bow down. And if you don't bow down, you won't understand why it's important to bow down. So in this case, this is a little bit like this earlier question. It's an injunction. You pay your obeisances. And that, just as a detail, this was a practice in the early days in the Hare Krishna movement, when the first thing in the morning when you saw another devotee, or any time during the day the first time you saw that devotee that day, the instruction was, the practice was, you pay obeisances. It may be, more than one time per day, but minimally one, because it's a principle of respect. Supposing one's not accustomed to that, in culture of the West, offering obeisances is, that's weird. But do it anyway. So the distinction between duplicity and the failure to do so, the doing so because I'm told to do so, it's not duplicity. It's what's the duplicity is. There's something that I know I should do, or something that I know I should not do, and I conceal it. That's duplicity. Here's a little example. Here, somebody's a new person, and they're how are you doing with your japa? I'm chanting 6 rounds a day, but my plan, so they're very clear. They're not being duplicitous, and my plan is, in the course of the upcoming months, I'll gradually move to 8 rounds, and then gradually move to 10 rounds, and my plan is to do this on a gradual basis. And then there's somebody else that they've taken vows of initiation, and over time, sometimes it happens, they slacken in those vows. And then when asked, the duplicitous is to not disclose, and the honest is to disclose. For different reasons, due to occupation, due to family, due to children, due to this and that. That vow that I once made, I haven't been able to maintain it. And so then, that honest and transparency, and then from that point of acknowledgement, then what's next? And duplicity might be to say, I'll fix it, when there isn't really the intention to fix it. Just that's the standard that I've come to. Anyway, back to it seems that the essence of the question is what's the subtle internal intention behind the activity, and to not say that honestly, that's duplicity, or to perform according to that internal, that's duplicity. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Thank you for the wonderful class. So regarding the disrespect and those things, I've committed so many of those things, and sometimes hatred speech also, and looking down.
Sometimes take what?
Hatred speech. Hatred. Hatred.
Secrecy. Hatred. Okay.
And looking down.
You went to the next one already. That comes after upeksha. Ill-wishing others.
So, and some of the things I really feel very bad about, and whenever I think of those things, it
Uncomfortable.
yeah, and some things I feel bad, and I'm unable to confront with that person also. So, what is the remedy for those things, Ma?
You're at the advanced stage. Can you tune in to he Vishwanath, Kapila Dev presents two remedies that, in principle, remedies, and the application of those principles are depending. Dana, giving in charity. The other phrase. Mana, offering respect. And in different ways, those two principles can be applied, depending upon the circumstance of life, the relationship and the circumstance of life. In principle, feeding others, for example, it's not just for feeding people who are poor. It's offering, the feeding of elderly and certain groups of people first, because they're elderly and because they're to be respected. So that's amana and dana at the same time. So wait till we get there, but those are remedies to those unwanted things within. It's an antidote to envy. Being respectful, and the different ways according to position, to be respectful with the words and the action in different circumstances. And it's a matter of principle. That is to say, there may be a particular individual who I have some feeling in relation to something they did or said or something. I can counteract that. I can counteract that tendency towards that individual by increasing my offering of respect to others aside from that individual. Is that if I exercise the mana of having a proper regard for others who are superior to me, I exercise that muscle. It means there's a greater strength now in that offering respect to others that can be an antidote to the envy that I feel towards a particular individual. It's spiritual strength can overcome the malady, the disease. You okay? You want something? Say something further. Go ahead.
So the dana aspect, so does it also to that particular individual, or
No. It's a pervasive principle. In village life in India, someone stands at the door, the head of the house or the wife or someone stands at the door. Is there anyone out there that's hungry? Come take your meal before the family members eat. You place their stomach before yours. There's Sanskrit that's connected with all of this. Best to wait until we get there. Okay? Okay. Yeah.
Shankar Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances at the lotus feet. Maharaj, these blockages which you are talking about, it feels that there is a lot of tendencies in my heart. And particularly I was feeling the vidambanam, the tendency, that behavior when you are alone, behave in a different way. So that tendency, I see it myself.
That what?
The tendency to behave differently when you are alone.
Yeah.
So how do I come over?
Be transparent. Move in that direction. I mean, it's just, you're asking a question that's self-evident. If I have a tendency to behave some way when I'm in a private situation and a different way in a public situation, what's the remedy? That's the question. Move in the direction of transparency. Starting with, let's say, persons who can hold some things confidential, let's say between husband and wife, or a family member, or a dear friend, or something like that. Yet you share with them, this is a struggle that I'm dealing with. Can you offer some remedy or some recommendation? Please give me some strength so I can overcome this shortcoming. That's one option. You want more?
Yeah, what is the, I think I feel discern and the judgment. How do I distinguish? Because I feel that sometimes I am doing the discerning, but actually, am I judging the people on that while doing the discern, or how do I distinguish whether I'm doing a discern, discerning the people of respecting it, or am I judging the people?
An answer that Prabhupada gives to something like this is it requires intelligence. You know, the intention behind something is subtle. And how am I going to discern the intention behind something? Is it this or is it that? It takes intelligence. And the intention to please Krishna is where that intelligence comes from. Super Soul can give intelligence to that person who wants to please Krishna. And then that the more subtle features of intelligence and discriminating capacity becomes yours by arrangement of Super Soul, by intelligence. An intelligent person can discern, and a less intelligent person cannot.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I was listening online on the way over here.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to clarify the meaning of upeksha. Is it specifically avoiding out of enviousness to another person, or is it just avoidance in general?
Well, nice question. Each of these four, according to our acharyas, they're degrees of envy. So your question is it envy? It's a degree of envy, a slightly greater degree of envy. And like this little graphic here says it, there's this dark cloud called animosity, another dark cloud called resentment. And they're both clouding or blocking the heart, and making some lightning and thunder sound too. So it's envy. Now, supposing there's a situation in someone's heart where there isn't envy. So when someone says or does something that would otherwise stimulate or accelerate envy in one's heart, it's gone because there isn't any. Then they're not feeling some negative emotion. To the degree that envy is prompted by a situation, to that degree there's envy in the heart. Well, if there's no envy, you're not going to avoid. You purify. You give association to that person in an appropriate way, given the person. And there's many examples. I could give some examples, but where an exalted person is offended, and they don't take offense. There's nothing to forgive because they don't take offense. No, between the person who is the offender, it's like this example you heard on the way over here, Pundrik Vijanidhi. He was not feeling, you've offended me, and I accept your apology. There's nothing to apologize for, because he purposefully was concealing his spiritual elevated status, but it became revealed by Mukunda just by singing a verse. So there's nothing to forgive. There was no envy in his heart. There's nothing to forgive. Although there was an offense. It was a mental offense. He didn't say anything, but he was feeling pretty strongly like, let me out of here. This is a sense gratifier. Look at this guy. So there was no feeling because there was no envy in his heart. And there are situations where there are devotees like that. No problem. It's squeaky clean. There's other examples, but that's a nice example. I'm not sure I'm addressing your question, though. Do you still have a question? Lingering question? Let's say it again. To the degree that there's something inside, envy, matsarya, one of the 6 enemies of conditioned soul, to whatever degree that's there, it's going to go towards another person, and ultimately it's arising from one's envy towards Krishna. But supposing that envy towards Krishna is zero, it's gone. It means gone because there's desire for loving the Supreme Person. Only, nothing but that. That's all that's there. There's no envy. There's no obstacle to pure bhakti because one is situated in that regard for the personality of Godhead. There's nothing else. In life, there's always something else. There's always something, and then 10 something. This example of problem solving. It happens in devotees' lives. One tribulation after the next, and after the next. And then the devotee goes like that, ouch. Instead of saying, thank you, Krishna. So just today I sent this little message from Bhakti Siddhanta that sometimes Krishna wants to purify a particular devotee, and therefore Krishna sends tribulation. Testing, he uses the word ardor. The degree and intensity of focus that individual has, that I wish to attain the Supreme. That's ardor. So Krishna may be testing or enhancing through the agency of obstacles and difficulties. And when the test for me or for you or each one of us is when those situations come, we're not saying ouch. We're saying thank you. Because the understanding is this is coming from Krishna. Well, at least Krishna's sanctioning that this is coming. And so behind it, there's Krishna. Someone saying or doing something that's hurtful. And Krishna, so thank you, Krishna. When there's no longer any envy in the heart. And only someone who has no longer envy in the heart can say, thank you, Krishna. Because otherwise you're going to say something else or think something else.
Hello. Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question is, we go to temple or chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra or chant God's name to cleanse ourselves.
Yes.
The four things what you said. But with this, if even though you chant or you go to temple, it's like pouring ghee into the ashes, right?
No.
It
It can be if this pouring ghee into ashes is the result of holding animosity towards a particular individual. I hold an attitude towards an individual, and I'm going to the temple and chanting Hare Krishna. That's like pouring ghee into ashes. But the way that you stated it, chanting, or going to the temple, it's ghee into ashes.
But I'm unable to. That's the reason I'm chanting and I'm going to temple. I myself can't able to get out of that.
You're unable to do what?
I'm unable to, get rid of the animosity or the grudge on a particular person.
Okay.
So I chant.
Okay. So now what is that? Okay, I think I've got your question. What should you do? You certainly should go to the temple and chant Hare Krishna. And is there something else that you should do in addition that to realign your heart to the stage of bhakti that doesn't have that animosity anymore? It's not like an add-on. It's just it's back to the solution. Learning to offer respect where respect is due in principle, because that's this whole seminar is on, the topic of respect. And if I am surround myself in a culture with exhibitions of respect in different ways, then it will help me overcome the tendency to have some animosity towards a particular individual for a particular thing that was done. That is, my heart will become cleansed. In addition to the chanting, going to the temple, or worshiping the deity, other aspects that are part of the life of a cultured person, and as the theme of this little seminar, by offering respect. Here, let's give some examples. Respect elderly. Now, to a large degree, in Indian families, that's still intact. There are situations in which the country in which we are, where that's not so much the case. It's less diminished. And we're in, over a period of time. Then how is that respect to elderly to be exhibited? Are there ways that it can be exhibited? In addition to, with palms folded before the elderly person, showing some external signs of respect. Are there other ways so as the culture of respect expands, then the obstacle of feeling some animosity towards a particular individual, that diminishes. And what are some of the ways? That's what this whole seminar is. What are some of the ways of respect? Respect to other living entities. Respect to nature. and so forth. As the culture of respect becomes vibrant, that along with chanting and worshiping the deity will enrich the opportunity for me to go beyond some attitude of hurt towards it, and thus avoiding this other individual. Now, a qualifier. It's mentioned several times already, but here it is again. It doesn't mean that hurtful thing that somebody has done either to me or to someone dear to me, and then they've done it 10 other times with other people, doesn't mean that behavior, that hurtful speech or behavior is okay. Doesn't mean it's okay, overlook the bad speech and behavior. But the whole animosity towards the person as opposed to the speech or behavior, that's the problem. I may have made a choice with a certain individual. I'm going to keep a safe distance from them because they're hurtful. And it's not just, in my case, I've seen it several times. They're hurtful people. So I'm not going to disrespect the person, but that behavior, the hurtful behavior, I'm going to keep a safe distance. And those persons that are dear to me, isolate them if possible, protect them from that hurtful behavior. But without disrespecting the person. That's a little delicate. Separate the behavior from the person. But why is that person behaving that way? Many cases, it's the perpetrator is because they've been a victim of that very same thing, and now they're the perpetrator of that same thing, that hurtfulness. They're hurting inside because they've been hurt, and now they're behaving in a way that was hurtful to them in the past, and now they're reproducing that same hurtfulness without even understanding that's what's going on. So the behavior is the culprit, not the person. That's the victim, now the perpetrator. So let me not hold animosity towards that person. And then what can I do about that behavior or such behaviors, plural, in the world? Now comes the chanting and the worshiping of the deity. That's the purpose, is that people should become happy and freed from that suffering. But let me not feel animosity towards a person. But that's a higher consciousness position to be in. And how do I get there? So respect, along with the culture of respect, the culture of being a cultured person, along with chanting. So we go the other direction. Supposing somebody is a conditioned soul and they're chanting and they're going to the temple worshiping the deity, but they're conditioned souls. They're going to misbehave because they're conditioned souls. And I see that misbehavior. But I don't judge the person. That's their product of their conditioning. What can I do? This is the service spirit mentality. What can I do in this particular case or in a pervasive case? I'm a little guy. What can I do about bad behaviors and harsh speech? And this is Kali Yuga. It's proliferating more and more. What do I do? What's my place of shelter? So cultivating respect, cultivating culture in a place where there's the culture of no culture That's a challenge. So I need both. The examples of culture, persons who are cultured, acharyas and Vaishnavas and persons that have, they're above me. I'm looking up to them and learning from their example, and out of that principle of trying to be of service to them and their mission and things like that. That becomes my quality also. Their quality becomes my quality. So we need such persons in our lives, in the world. And then I can, that regard of service, serving more elevated Vaishnavas is likely going to help me overcome this animosity towards an individual that did hurtful something, or I just spoke something nasty. And that, that it goes back to some people, they're just so immersed in it. There's a hopeless case. So I could, from a distance, I can pray for their well-being, but I'm not going to get close to that person because they're hurtful, impulsively. Here's a nice example. The two nice examples. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, super, triple super powerful, prayed to the personality of Godhead to send a ray of Vishnu into this world, because the degradation of Kali is so progressive and so difficult. An incarnation, an avatar of Vishnu is needed. And this is so extreme. And so Vishnu reciprocated, gave him such a son. The ray of Vishnu, Bhakti Siddhanta. But, so that's something else that can be done. But, an exalted person, you and I may not be exalted persons, but we can offer prayers to the personality of Godhead. This degradation of the age of Kali is so severe. What to do? Help. And that's the whole of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So hear, chant, remember, and propagate Srimad Bhagavatam. See that others have an opportunity to hear it and read it, and to the best of our capacity, be in the association of elevated souls, so I can become like the elevated souls by association and service, and make a difference, as opposed to feel animosity. Yeah. Thanks for the question. Okay, I think we should end. Srila Prabhupada, please. Jai.